Okay, this is a fretboard that I laid out, and as you can see, I've also laid out the G scale played on the low E string. You got the root, 2nd, 3rd degree, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and the octave at the 15th fret. This is written right here. So this is the G scale played on the low E string. Now, if I want to play a 3-note per string G scale starting on the root on the 3rd fret right here, okay, this is what I'm gonna get. There you go. Now, this is the G, also known, G major, also known as the Ionian scale. If you notice here, okay, there you got notes all over the place, but you notice that you have fingering patterns, okay, that are grouped. The first fingering pattern that I have here has 3 notes equally spaced, okay, with 2 frets there, 2 frets there. I call this fingering pattern number 3. Okay, let's get rid of that. Now the second fingering pattern right here is 1 fret interval and then 2 fret intervals. And you got 2 of those. I call this fingering pattern number 1. Get rid of that. The last fingering pattern here has 2 fret intervals here and then 1. I call this fingering pattern number 2. Okay. There you go. So this is the G Ionian scale. So you got 2 fingering patterns number 3, then 2 fingering patterns number 1, and then 2 fingering patterns number 2. Okay, what if I play the G scale, but starting on the 2nd degree on the 5th fret, meaning the A note? What am I going to get? Okay, that's going to be a Dorian mode right there. This is what I get. Okay. Now notice here, I have a lone fingering pattern number 2, which is right here, full step, half step. Then I have 3 times the fingering pattern number 3, full step, full step. Then after the 3, I have 2 fingering patterns number 1, half step, full step. So after 3 is 1. And you got 3 of those and 2 of those. Alright. Now let's play the G scale starting on the 3rd degree of the scale, meaning that is a B note. Okay. We're going to have a B Phrygian. Which is this. Boom, right? You still have the 3rd note, 3rd degree of the scale. This is a B Phrygian. Okay, what do we have as far as fingering pattern? Okay, we have a lone fingering pattern number 1. Then we have 2 fingering patterns number 2, full step, half step. We got these 2 guys right there. Okay. And then we have 3 fingering patterns number 3. Notice that these patterns, even though they're staggered, they're still full step, full step, full step, full step. It's the same fingering pattern, even though they're staggered. So we got 1, 2, then 3. And the number 2, we got 2 of those. Number 3, we got 3 of those. So we're starting to see a pattern here, okay? Now let's play, okay, the G scale starting on the 4th degree of the scale right here, okay, on the 8th fret. What are we gonna have? We get the C Lydian scale. Oh, that one's weird. Okay, at the bottom here we have a lone pattern number 3. Okay, right there. Full step, full step. Then we have 2 pattern number 1s. Half step, full step. Notice always number 1 always goes in pairs. Okay. Then we have 2 pattern number 2. Full step, half step. Even though they're staggered, they're still the same full step, half step pattern. And we have a lone number 3 here at the high E string. Full step, full step. Okay, so let's forge ahead. Now, if we play the C scale on the 5th degree, okay, what are we gonna get? I guess we're gonna get the Mixolydian scale. Let me check that out. Yep. Okay. Now here we have fingering pattern number 3, 3 times, full step, 3 strings. Now we have the fingering pattern number 1, which is half step, full step, twice, even though they're staggered, it's still the same fingering pattern. And then we have a lone fingering pattern number 2, full step, half step. So I'm not asking you to memorize all those positions. You're going to understand, you know, down the line what's going on. Okay, G scale played on the 6th degree of the scale. We're going to get an Aeolian mode. Okay, so let's look at that. Aeolian is right here. Okay, that is an E Aeolian played on the 12th fret. Okay, so what do we have here? We got 2 times pattern number 2, 3 times pattern number 3, even though the 3rd one is staggered, still the same pattern, and 1 time pattern number 1. Okay, have you noticed that most of the time the number 3 works in trios, number 2 in pairs, number 1 in pairs, okay? And they're always in the sequence 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You're not going to have like number 3 fingering patterns, then the number 2. It won't happen. Okay? Now, let's look at this G scale played on the 7th degree. That's going to give us a Locrian mode, which is right here. Let me turn on F. Okay. Here the Locrian mode is kind of strange because you actually start on the first number 1, then the second number 1, okay? Then you have twice the fingering pattern number 2, full step, half step. And then you have 2 times the fingering pattern number 3. Now, let's imagine that you would have a high A string, a 7th string right here. What would be the pattern, the fingering pattern on that string? Well, it would be the 3rd, number 3. Okay. Now, let's go back to the, well, we're actually going all the way up to the octave, okay, which is on the G scale, the same that we had at the root, okay? The Ionian mode right here, it's the same fingering pattern. Twice number 3, okay? Twice number 3, twice number 1, twice number 2, twice number 3, twice number 1, twice number 2. Okay, now that we've seen all that, that's a lot of stuff to remember. But here's the trick. Let's imagine for a minute that we have an infinite width guitar. It has like 100 strings, okay? and the guitar is tuned, then when you play a scale, you don't have to shift positions. Okay, you never have to shift. Okay, you're always on the first fret right here at the beginning. This is what you would get. You would play 2 fingering patterns number 1, half step, full step, then 2 fingering patterns number 2, full step, half step, and then you would play 3 fingerings number 3, full step, and you would start all over again. 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3. It always works like that. Now let's assume that you would play 6 of these patterns right there. Okay, I've just chosen like 6. You got 1 fingering pattern number 1, 2 fingering patterns number 2, and 3 fingering patterns number 3. Well, what does that look like on the actual guitar? Well, I can tell you because I've looked at it before. It's the Phrygian mode right there, okay? 1 fingering pattern number 1, 2 fingering patterns number 2, and 3, even though they're staggered, fingering patterns number 3. So there you have it. That's the secret, okay? If you play 3 patterns number 3, the next one has to be a pattern number 1. There's no way around it. Naturally, if you're going down the scale from the high E to the low, you reverse the sequence. That's the trick. Hope that helps you out. See you next time.